We talk about scams a lot on the show.
Mm.
And we always talk about the financial devastation, which is important. But what about the emotional impact? What about the families?
Right.
The families of these victims?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today. We've got some really powerful material from the Scars Institute. And they've shared some really heartbreaking stories about how these scams don't just impact the individual, but their entire family. Like there's this one story from the Scars Institute about this woman. She reached out to them just beside herself. Her husband had drained their life savings. He was convinced he'd found this amazing investment opportunity. But it was all a scam, this elaborate scheme.
Yeah, and it's so sad because that feeling of helplessness, it's incredibly common. When you're watching someone you love just fall prey to these scams, the Scars Institute actually uses the term, secondary victims, to describe family members in these situations. And I think it's a really powerful term.
Secondary victims. It's like they're caught in this emotional blast radius. But, what really struck me from reading these Scars materials is that this could happen to anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
We have this perception of scam victims, like they're gullible or naive.
Right, like they should have known better.
Exactly. But it's so much more nuanced than that.
It really is. These scammers are professionals.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. They're like emotional con artists. They study their victims. They figure out what makes them tick: loneliness, insecurity, the desire for connection, and then they exploit it.
Wow. So it's like preying on their vulnerabilities and then using those vulnerabilities against them.
Precisely.
So how do you begin to protect yourself, protect your family from something like that?
Right. And that feeling you just mentioned, that sense of helplessness, that's something that the Scars Institute talks about a lot. It's a form of vicarious trauma.
Vicarious trauma. I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Yeah. So basically, it's when you experience trauma indirectly.
Okay.
So through witnessing or hearing about someone else's suffering.
I see.
So in this case, it's not just about feeling bad for your loved one. It's about internalizing their trauma.
Wow.
Feeling the weight of their pain.
Yeah.
As if it were your own.
That's such a powerful way to describe it.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense because the families in these Scar stories, they're not just dealing with the financial loss. They're dealing with the emotional fallout of watching someone they love get manipulated and deceived.
Exactly. And that's where the scammers' tactics, they become really insidious because they deliberately isolate victims from their families.
Oh, yeah.
They know that the stronger the family bond, the harder it'll be to break.
So it's like they're trying to cut off those lifelines that could potentially save the victim.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful weapons in their arsenal is gaslighting. Yeah, gaslighting is basically distorting reality. It's, making the victim doubt their own perception, their memories. And scammers use it all the time.
Yeah, the Scars Institute gives all these crazy examples of the things these scammers will say. Like they'll tell the victim, your family doesn't understand our connection. Or they're just trying to control you. They're just jealous of our love.
It's classic divide and conquer.
Right.
Yeah, they position themselves as the victim's only confidant.
Wow.
Like the only person they can trust, the only person who truly understands them. And at the same time, they're poisoning the well with their relationship with everyone else.
And the sad thing is, it works. You read these stories from Scars, and you see families being torn apart. Victims turning against their own loved ones,
Right.
convinced that they're the enemy.
Absolutely. Because in the reality the scammer has created, they are the enemy. Anyone who questions the relationship is immediately suspicious. They're jealous. They're trying to sabotage things.
It's like that saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the scammer is this invisible puppet master.
Yeah.
Pulling all the strings.
Controlling everything.
And as the victim gets more and more isolated, they become more and more dependent on the scammer.
Exactly.
Which makes the financial aspect even more devastating.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's not just about the money they lose directly.
Right. It's about so much more than that.
The Scars materials really opened my eyes to this.
Yeah.
This whole ripple effect.
So families drain their savings to try and help.
Right.
Only to find out it was all a lie. Homes are lost. Retirements are gone. College funds disappear.
So that financial strain, it's like its own form of trauma.
Absolutely.
It just adds another layer of pain and resentment.
Yeah. And the Scars Institute, actually, they shared this one story about this couple who lost their life savings because the husband, he was tricked into believing that he'd found this incredible investment opportunity.
Oh, wow.
And he truly believed he was doing the right thing. He was securing their future. But in reality, he was destroying it.
It's just heartbreaking
Ah.
because these scammers, they prey on our best instinct.
They do.
Our desire to help, our desire to believe the best in people, and they twist it against us.
And it's interesting because the emotional fallout, it can be just as devastating as the financial ruin.
Absolutely.
The Scars Institute actually found that relationship scams, they often lead to divorce.
Really?
Even when the victim was manipulated and not intentionally unfaithful.
Wow. So it's like a double betrayal. First by the scammer, and then by the person they thought they could trust.
Exactly.
That's really heavy.
It is, and it really speaks to the complex emotions involved, because how do you rebuild trust?
Right.
How do you move forward when the foundation of your relationship has been shattered like that?
It's tough.
Yeah.
But that's where resources like the Scars Institute come in.
Yeah.
They're not just about catching these scammers. They're really about helping families heal from these experiences.
Right. They offer so much support, information, support groups. They even have this Scam Survivors School.
Yeah. What is that?
So it's a completely free program, and it covers everything: how scams work, the psychology behind them, and most importantly, how to heal and move forward.
It sounds incredibly helpful.
It is. They even have specific modules for couples and families who've been impacted by scams.
Which makes sense because, as we've been talking about, this isn't just an individual thing.
Right. It affects the whole family.
A whole family system.
And one of the things I think is so powerful about the program is that it helps families understand the tactics that were used against their loved one. Because sometimes there's this sense of guilt or self-blame.
Like, if only I'd seen the signs. If only I'd been more careful.
Exactly. And the program helps people understand that it's not about being gullible or naive. It's about being targeted by a skilled criminal.
Right. It takes that self-blame away.
It does. It allows them to start healing.
And speaking of healing, we talked earlier about therapy and how important it can be, not just for the victim themselves, but for the entire family.
Absolutely. The Scars Institute really emphasizes that. They say that therapy can provide this safe and supportive space for families to process all those complex emotions.
It's so important to have that.
It is, because trying to navigate those emotions alone, the anger, the resentment,
The betrayal.
it's incredibly difficult.
It's like trying to perform surgery on yourself.
Exactly. You need a professional
Yeah.
to guide you through it.
Absolutely. And what about the kids? The Scars materials mentioned how even young children who witness a parent being scammed can experience trauma.
It's true. They might not understand what's happening, but they feel it.
Right. Nightmares, anxiety.
Exactly.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, which is why therapy is so important for them, too. It gives them that safe space to talk about their feelings.
To process what happened.
Exactly, and to learn healthy coping mechanisms.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It really has.
You know, we always talk about the financial impact of scams, but exploring this hidden trauma, the impact on families, it just adds a whole other layer to it.
It does.
But it also gives us hope, knowing that there are resources out there, like the Scars Institute.
Absolutely, they're doing amazing work.
They're helping families heal.
They are.
And that's what's so important. So if you or someone you love has been affected by a scam, please reach out for help. There are resources available. You don't have to go through this alone.
You really don't.
Remember, knowledge is power, and there's always hope. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and take care of yourselves and each other.